What's going on, everyone? It's Braydon Lynch here with the first episode of the Canadian Famous Podcast, coming to you March 26th, 2024. The audio sounds like there's a little bit of background noise. I hope that I can buff that out when I'm editing, but you guys probably wouldn't know the difference. I'm just being a loser about that. So yeah, we're gonna get rocking. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Those of you old Tugging It Tuesday podcast listeners, it's time. We're back. I know you guys are excited to be back listening to me talk about my random crap. And for you new listeners, thanks for tuning in. This podcast is being brought to you by Cowbell Comedy. More laughs, more comedy, more cowbell. We have a show coming up on Saturday, March 30th, this weekend at 8:30 p.m. It's at Comedy Bar in the Cab Space. Tickets are $20 online, and they are $30 at the door. Get your tickets, I guess. Who knows? Maybe this is comes out after. Hopefully, I get it edited and it comes out before. Yeah. So, what's been going on with me in the past 5 years since I had a podcast? A lot, actually. I got hit by a car, and that sucked. I went to rehab. I got sober, and then I got drunk again, and I relapsed, and then I burnt my life to the ground, and then I just went back to rehab for the second time. And now today, I think I'm 35, 36 days sober, something like that. And, yeah, it's interesting when you go back to rehab, right? For especially when it was the same one that you go back to. It's like I feel like I know what it was like being one of those kids who failed grade 7 and had to come back and redo the year, right? It's like the same teachers, just different fucking different friends you got to make. So that was interesting. Yeah, I've been drinking now. I'm drinking these non-alcoholic beers, and I find myself drinking maybe 2 or 3 of them every day by myself. Is that a problem? Maybe, but who's to judge, right? Only God can judge me. That's a Tupac song. I was going to talk about this later on, but yeah, let's get right into it. Tupac, who killed him? Puff Daddy, obviously. The feds, they just raided Puff Daddy's estate or house in LA, I guess. I haven't read up on this a whole lot, but I know this mother effer is guilty. Guilty as charged. I've been saying it back in October. What's that Keith D thing came out? He said that Puff Daddy paid him $1 million and 3 other Crips to kill Tupac. Yeah, we all knew it all along. He orchestrated it. He killed Tupac. Probably tried to kill friggin' Suge Knight, the death row guy. And then afterwards, he saw Tupac's record spike. He goes, oh shit, I'm going to off my own boy, Biggie, and get his record spikes, right? So he obviously is behind killing Tupac Shakur, and he's obviously behind killing Christopher Wallace, the Notorious B.I.G. Who was a better rapper? I don't know. You could go back and ask my grade 12 classmates, as I did like a 36-minute long speech on who was a better rapper, Tupac or Biggie. I really think that they're kind of tied in that, but I do enjoy listening to Biggie's music more, I think. Tupac put out a lot more, and I thought he was pretty bad arse, but I think I kind of enjoy now when I look back at it, years and years later. I think Biggie Smalls is probably the best rapper of all time. Yeah, that's my opinion on that. But did Puff Daddy do it? Yeah. I mean, the guy got on a plane and he flew. Like, he just left America. Like, you don't do that unless you're guilty. He's probably involved. I think there was something talking about there was sex trafficking or something involved. That's obviously happened, probably. But I think the real reason he's heading out of Dodge is because everybody's about to find out that Puff Daddy killed Tupac and he killed Notorious B.I.G. I've known it for years. Now you all do too, because you are listening to my podcast. I've been talking. I did a reel the other day, and I've been talking about this kind of a bit on stage. I didn't know that you couldn't own self-defense weapons here in Canada. I thought you were allowed to have pepper spray. I thought you were allowed to have a taser. No, you're not. You're not allowed any self-defense weapons in Canada, which is insane to me. I Googled what kind of self-defense weapons you can have, and they said that you could have like a distracting water bottle. A water bottle that you can undo on the bottom and have like there wasn't even weapons in there. I'm like, this is the dumbest article I think I've read in my entire life. They said there was like an umbrella you can buy that you can like hit people with an umbrella. It's like, well, I don't understand why we can't even have like a pistol or maybe that's a little excessive, but pepper spray. You should be allowed to carry pepper spray. And if some guy comes up and he's trying to finger bang your butthole, you can give him a little pepper spray. I think it's crazy that you can't have pepper spray in Canada. Don't get me started on the where this country is right now, where it's headed. We knew it was heading here. It is just a complete joke. Since COVID, the Canadian government has taken so many steps to make sure that their citizens are censored. That that would. They just have taken major control over us, I feel, anyways. The price of everything is out of control. If you look at it, it's pretty tough to think that most, I would say 30 and 20-year-olds will probably, if you don't own a home already, it's probably pretty tough to think that you're going to own a home one day, unless you go to Alberta or Saskatchewan. And do I want to live in Saskatchewan? No, because I moved here. The winters are way too cold. It's not that it's not that I'm a pussy, man. What, you can't handle the cold? I can handle it. I just don't want to. I did it for, I think, 26, 27 years of my life. There is no part of me that wants to wake up in minus 40 or minus 30. Plug my vehicle in order for it to start in the morning. Give me a gosh darn break. It is not happening. See, no, I'm not going to buy a house in Saskatchewan for $200 and some thousand, even though, sure, there'd be a nice backyard, having your kids run around in the backyard, having dogs run around in the backyard. Something I'll probably never have here in Toronto unless I make it big like Puff Daddy. Yeah, this country is just being in complete disarray since COVID, I think. It's crazy to think that COVID was actually 4 years ago. 4 years have flown by since the pandemic started. And I was thinking about this the other day. Do you remember when COVID, like that first year, when they were like, oh yeah, you can't go out, you can't go to the grocery store. And they were saying that, the elderly could go and shop at the grocery store from 7 a.m. till 8 a.m. That was their idea. That was the grocery store's idea of protecting the elderly people. They're like, oh, well, if you don't want to die, you better get up at 6:30 and then you can chug your way down to the grocery store and you can shop for an hour before the rest of us animals come in there and buy all the toilet paper and the flour. Like, what? What elderly person? I mean, I guess elderly people get up early. That's the thing I notice. When you get older, you start waking up earlier. And I think it's like one of those things where it's like, well, I don't have a lot of time left, so maybe I might as well make the most of my days and get up at 5 in the morning so I can experience it all, I don't know. I like sleeping in. If they told me in the COVID that I had to get up at 6:45 to go and get my groceries from 7 till 8 a.m., I probably would have just fallen over and died or tried to get COVID and died as an old person, right? This podcast, we do support the elderly, despite what I just said. No, I honestly, old people are like my spirit animals. And I say this on stage. Old people, I love them. I feel like we got ripped off with COVID. I think the world would have been a lot better place if more high school kids would have died. I'm just saying, high school kids are annoying as hell. I was in Starbucks yesterday. I was doing some computer work, and this group of like high school kids came in and just like, they're so fucking loud, so annoying. I just want to get up and just, hey, you kids, smarten up. And I guess maybe it's because I'm getting old, but Jesus, Murphy, love a duck. High school kids, So annoying. And these kids nowadays, they don't know if they're cats, they don't know if they're dogs, they don't know how to identify. It's I just the state of the world and what these kids have done to it. We can blame everything, all the problems we're facing, blame it on the high school kids. It's not the government's fault. It's not the government's fault or the elites or the people pulling the strings, the puppeteers and the Illuminati. No, it's the high school kids' fault, right? Um, which brings me to my next topic. Do you guys think that like the original Coca-Cola and like Diet Coke, do you think that they look at like the zero sugar Coke and be like, oh, look at them, trans Coke? It's like, oh, that's how you identify zero sugar? Like, ooh, you're gonna be different, just couldn't go from the grain. Because me, I always saw like regular Coke is like the man, and then like Diet Coke is the female, right? And now you got zero sugar. It's like that's the non-binary. Non-sugar, non-binary Coke, right? I think that's probably what Coca-Cola and Diet Coke cans think of the zero sugar Coke, a cola, not to be confused with the devil's dandruff, right? Um, I've been doing some meditation since I've gotten sober. I've been doing some meditation here. And the one thing I hate during meditation is like at the start, there's always like, not always, but sometimes you'll hear them say, oh, there's no expectations. No expectations for today's meditation. It's like, well, then what the are we doing this for? Why? Like, if there's no expectations, like, can you imagine like your hockey coach being like, all right, guys, there's no expectations today in practice. Like, you don't need to get better. We don't need to get worse. Like, it's just, we're going to go out there. We're going to have fun. No, we are here to win. Why am I meditating if it's not going to make me better? There are expectations. My expectations are to not be such a reactive piece of garbage anymore, right? I've been working with a new therapist, which is good because I've got borderline personality disorder. For some of you who did not know that, I talk about it on stage. I'm pretty vocal about that. What borderline personality disorder is it's basically like you have this fear of abandonment, you have a fear of rejection. So like when relationships go sideways, you're just like, no, 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 don't leave me, don't ever leave me, and then your ex-girlfriends end up just blocking you on every platform. And it sucks when they do block you on every platform because it's like their birthdays come around or Christmas and you want to like, message them and be like, hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. And, for me, when it comes time for that, I have to like send them an e-transfer. I send them like $15 and be like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Happy birthday. I hope you're doing well. Maybe you can unblock me and we could have a conversation, right? It's like, can you cancel this e-transfer though? I really need this $15. So I've been working with this new therapist and it's been, I think we've had 3 sessions now, 2 or 3 sessions. And the first session, it was all about like me telling her like my timeline, getting her caught up with, my past and things that have happened in my life. And so I was telling her about one of these ex-girlfriends, one of these situations. I said, yeah. And I said, and she was lying about, drug usage. And we got into this argument. We got into a fight. And she's like, and you hit her. I was like, no, I didn't hit her. I've never hit a woman in my life. And she's like, okay, all right, take it easy. And I'm like, okay. And so then I keep going and I keep going with the timeline. And then I say, yeah. And so then, my partner now, things are rocky between us. And a couple months ago, we got in an argument, we had a fight. And she's like, and you hit her. And I was like, no, I didn't hit her. Like, as a matter of fact, I think she hit me, And then I was like, who hit you? Like, is there something you want to talk about? And I was just like, I kind of like this therapist, right? Like, do I got to go beat some guy up for her, right? She get beat up at home, right? And so we kept going with the timeline. I told her about my BPD and we talked about some of my trauma and stuff. And then at the end of the first session, she's like, okay, she's like, that's $150. I'm like, all right, well, now I got to hit you, boom. That's a joke. Don't take that serious. This probably isn't going to go good on YouTube or something like that. They're like, censor it out. They're like, oh no, he's talking about hitting women. It's just a joke, guys. Just a joke. I'm going to therapy. Trying to get my shit together. I'm trying to get my shit together. I'm 35, I figure now is the time to get my stuff together. Because I want to be a dad, I want to have a family, a lot of my friends, back home, they all got families, they got kids running around. I'm like, I'd love that. But started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know that I'd be good at being a dad, right? You guys have listened to me for a little bit here, and I think it's probably safe to say maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't be a dad. Just download all my trauma and insecurities onto this poor kid, right? No, I think I'd be good. I think I'd be a good dad, but I don't know that I could do it because there's certain things that I'm like, I think I'd cut corners, right? Like who who doesn't leave their kid in the car, right? I'm just saying, if I had a kid, like a child, I would leave it in the car. If I'm gonna run into the grocery store just to get some butter, and I'm gonna be in there for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes only, and hopefully, there's not a lineup with these self-checkouts nowadays. Gosh darn it. And paying the 35 cents for the bags, that crap has gotta go too. I'm telling you, I'm just saving up all my receipts. I'm saving up all my receipts, and then I'm going to take back all these reusable bags, and I'm going to go, here you go. I'm returning them. I don't need them. They didn't work. So you give me my refund, right? In 10 bags, $3.50, right? Give it back. So hopefully, I go in, there's no lineup. I grab my butter, and I can get back out into the car, and, kid's sitting there. He's fine, leave the air conditioning on for him. I don't know. I think I'd leave my kid in the car. I don't think there's any problem with it. My parents left me in the car, and look at me. I turned out fine. Maybe that's why I have a fear of abandonment, actually, now that I think about it. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of, work on myself, trying to get better. Because, man, I can get so angry, especially being sober. I just, so much stuff just you see it and you just go, really, like that's it, if like this TikTok, the dances, and it's like, how the f does that get 1 million views? Like, you see all these things where it's like, oh, we're gonna make burger croissants today, and then the guy flips out his little Pillsbury Doughboy, the croissant things, right? And that's me drinking a non-alcoholic beer there. Harmon's Half Daisy, or Half Day, Half Daisy. I'm your Huckleberry. That's a Tombstone reference. Harmon's Half Day Non-Alcoholic Hazy IPA. They're decent, actually. I really enjoy these puppies. For a non-alcoholic, I'm gonna give them, I got to find a new rating scale for these things because, these. I don't think that you could rate a non-alcoholic beer above. I didn't notice how I said non-alcoholic and not non-alcohol, or maybe it's the same. I don't think you can rate a non-alcoholic beer above 8 because it's not the real thing, So if I had to give this thing a rating, I'd probably give her a 7.4, 7.5. They're pretty decent, I do enjoy them. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, the burger croissants. Yeah. So I watched this TikTok. The guy rolls out his Pillsbury croissants there or whatever, and then he puts the ground beef on there and the cheese. He puts it in the oven, rolls it up, and he's baking it up there. And then he makes his dip with the ketchup, the mustard, and the mayo blended together with the pickles in there. Then he takes it out, and you got to have the dip. It's like, dude, you're just eating a burger. Like, that is a burger. Just eat the burger and stop making me watch these stupid videos. These people doing burger bowls. It's the same thing. Just eat a fucking burger and shut up about it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be TikToking trying to see your fucking fancy burger croissants, all right? I want to be seeing my face talking to me because I love myself. That's why I want to see myself on TikTok. So stop watching your burger croissant videos. Stop making your burger croissant videos. Oh yeah, this happened the other day. I was in went to the public washroom. Remember when you didn't have the public washrooms during COVID, right? We didn't have them for the longest time, but we got them back, and I'm like, oh, that's decent, right? But there's just animals in there too. Like if you got to use the public washroom, and here's why: sometimes I use the public washroom. This was back when I was drinking, right? I thought I had undiagnosed IBS because there's sometimes I would just get the rumble guts. I'm like, oh no, I got shit, and I would run, and I would have to hit these public washrooms, right? Now that I quit drinking, I've had nothing but hard poops, like 3 a day, 2 a day. Like this IBS thing, I don't know. I don't know why I got I don't know why I got a colonoscopy done. The guy's probably like, no, man, that thing's decent, right? Here's another thing. When you get a colonoscopy test done, they make you drink this jug of juice, and it's just awful tasting shit. And when you start drinking, it just makes you diarrhea all over the place. It's trying to clean out your colon or whatever so that they can put the camera up there, right? But the juice is called Peg Light. And it's like, Peg Light, I mean, come on. Like, I'm already worried enough that I'm getting pegged tomorrow. You don't have to remind me. And it's not going to be a light pegging. Like, it's going to be, I'm glad they knock you out for it. You imagine some guy just goes in there and is like, no, I could take a duck, just ram it up there. That's too far. I took it way too far. But yeah, so sometimes I use these public washrooms because I get the rumble guts. I got to take a shit, right? So I run into the one, I'm at Loblaws, and I run into the one, that rip off of a grocery store, right? Galen Weston, you can suck it. So I go into this washroom, right? There's pubes all over the place. I don't know if it was pubes or if a homeless guy shaved his face. But I'm like, there's pubes all over here. This is disgusting, right? So I do my business after I, build my little toilet paper nest there, right? I do my business and I leave. And as soon as I leave, there's like this pretty attractive woman, right? And I just wanted to be like, the pubes aren't mine. Honestly, I didn't do it. And I just started thinking, I'm like, that would be the worst way to meet somebody. Like, can you imagine you marry someone and it's like, oh, how'd you meet your partner? It's like, well, I destroyed a public washroom and it just was like terrible. It just smelled like the hottest, grossest shit possible. And then I left and there was this woman. I was just like, you don't want to go in there. Just come with me. I'll get you a coffee. You can come back in about 5 minutes. And that's how I met your mom, That's the story. You imagine that? I don't think it would work that way, but it could. On the topics of getting married, I was looking, not because I'm going to get married anytime soon, but I was with my partner, and we were in the mall a couple months back, and we were just walking, and we saw like the rings or whatever, right? And we saw jewelry stores. Let's go check it out, right? And I just kind of said like, which ones do you like? She pointed to some, and then I saw that you can finance a wedding ring. And I was like, well, that's the real test of if it's real love, is if you're willing to finance that wedding ring, that's the real test, because anybody can just buy a wedding ring for 10 grand, right? And if you ask her and she says no, okay, you take it to a pawn shop and get 2 grand for it or whatever, right? 10 grand down the drain, you can forget about it. You can move on. But if you finance that wedding ring and she says no, every month you got to make those payments on the wedding ring and you got to relive that fucking heartbreak. It's just like, oh, $400. Damn it, I wish you would have said yes. You call her back, right? Send her an e-transfer, be like, please, this financing is killing me. I'm going bankrupt here. Please just say yes, Yeah, so if you're thinking about getting married, and you're thinking about buying a wedding ring, ask yourself, would you finance the wedding ring? If you wouldn't, then it's not meant to be. I think the world is in a crazy place right now. I think technology is going to take us over. I mean, we created AI. It's the dumbest thing. I personally, I try and use AI sometimes to make my life easier, but it doesn't. It just gives you a beat around the bush answer, right? Like I did AI. I asked AI. I was like, how can I get my ex-girlfriend back? And it was like, well, you do this, and it's like you gotta show through time that you've changed. You have to make changes and all this. And then it was like, okay, how do I tell her family and friends? How do we tell her family and friends that we're back together? And it was kind of the the same. But AI, it always just beats around the bush. And the one time I forgot my password. I forgot my password to log into the AI app. And I tell you what, oh no, that's the wrong password. And then you see you pick a new one. It's, oh, that password's not strong enough. And it's like, well, then you tell me what password I should use. Make up my password for me. Plus, you're AI. Shouldn't you already know that it's me? Like, you're so, smart. Like, just give me the password. Tell me A plus B equals fucking C. I don't know. Use that as a password, AI, you gong show. I don't know. Sometimes I just get angry and I just type in shit to the AI. I'm like, you're stupid. This is why no one loves you. That's probably why it never works for me and never answers my questions. It's probably just knows I'm psycho. My AI is just like, it's definitely, if my AI could like communicate with my therapist, that would be a good podcast to listen to. It's like, yeah, he does have problems, doesn't he? I think that they're gonna have AI detectives one day. AIs are gonna figure everything out, and they've been doing this AI for the longest time. I remember cutting the keys. Remember it used to be the old dude at the hardware store, and he'd have to put it in there and dial her up all perfect, that machine. But now they got the computers and they do it, and it's just a gong show. I went to Canadian Tire trying to get one, and the computer doesn't know how to read it, and the person putting it in don't know how to put it in right. Like that guy who used to cut the keys, he was someone where you can't take that guy's job. That guy deserved his pay. And he deserved a raise, He probably wasn't making a whole lot cutting them keys for the hardware store, I'm telling you. But he deserved a top-notch wage. We're talking $80K a year plus benefits to cut them keys. I mean, maybe that's a little excessive, but with today's inflation, you don't know. I was down, I went on a trip this year. I went down to Mexico. I went down to Mexico, and it was actually it was kind of it was funny how I went down there. I guess not necessarily funny. It was more so worrisome because I remember little bits of getting to the airport. I don't quite remember getting on the plane. I do remember waking up and sobering up in the emergency exit of the plane and looking over at the person next to me and being like, "Are we going to Puerto Vallarta?" And she was like, "Yeah, you don't know that?" And I was like, "No." Didn't know where my hotel was, didn't know how much I spent on flights. So that was great. We landed in Mexico. Turned out I got a steal of a deal on flights. I took Flair Air down there, and I think my flights there and back were less. Or it was like 400 or 450, I think, to Puerto Vallarta and back. So just a steal of a deal there. And then my hotel rooms, I paid. It was like $100 a night. So it was $1,000. I think I had. All in for my travel, my hotel, and everything for about a week. Maybe that's pretty on par for Mexico, I guess, if you were to book through a travel agent. But I had a good time down there in Mexico, and there was one time I was at this bar. I forget what it's called now, but they made the best tacos I think that I've ever had in Mexico, and it was because they were called gringo tacos. They were just tacos, how you'd make them, how the Canadians would make them, right? Just your ground beef, a hard shell, lettuce, tomatoes, cheese, and sour cream and salsa. And oh my gosh, those puppies I think there were 3 of them it was $10 Canadian it worked out to. So I kept going back there, and oh man, they were great tacos, those gringo tacos. But there was a guy there who I was sitting beside, and we got to chat, and he was chirping me about my cut-off jean shorts. He's, oh, those suck. They're not even frayed up. You could tell you just cut them. And I'm like, well, yeah, I did, you asshole. Like, calling me out or whatever. And so we started chatting for a little bit, and then he tells me how he's a flat earther. And I'm like, oh, I'm a fucking idiot for cutting my jean shorts? Like, I don't know. He made some good points for the flat earth, but the one thing he said was, where we're spinning at, I forget how many miles per hour or whatever, but then at the North Pole, it's a different amount. It's a different speed that the North Pole is spinning at. And he's like, you're telling me that you wouldn't feel that difference in speed? And I'm like, I don't know, what gravity? And he's like, gravity? He's like, that's just a bullshit made up. As he started he started making a little bit of sense, and I'm pretty gullible, so I was like, oh yeah, maybe I will be a flat earther. And he had an app, and I have the video, actually. I took a video of his app where it shows the sun and the moon going around us on this disc, and it shows how there's ice walls at the end of that there's ice walls. And I was like, oh, it's like Game of Thrones. He's like, no, it's like the Outer Limits. He's like, I never worked on Game of Thrones, but I worked on Outer Limits and the X-Files. I'm like, oh, so that means that the whole world is flat. I'll add this video to the Canadian Famous Instagram. Follow it. Instagram, Canadian Famous Comedy, on Instagram. I'll post a video there. You can see this Flat Earthers app. And so I said, oh, I got to Google that. There was one of the facts he said. And I'm like, oh, I got to Google that. And he's like, Google? He's like, you kidding me? He's like, you trust Google? He's like, you probably trust Trudeau too. I think COVID was real. And I'm like, well, I mean, I think it is real. How it was created might not have been the full story, but so this guy was just shit talking me because I believed in the planet being a sphere, I guess, a circle. No, what do you call it? It's round. The world's round. It's a sphere, yeah, and he thought it was a disc. So I mean, maybe he was right, and I'm the dumbass. Maybe. I don't know. This leads me to my next topic. Well, I was back in my hometown. I was back there for a funeral in November, and it was good in a sense that the funeral obviously was tough. It was a buddy of mine who passed tragically, and rest in peace, Jesse. It was tough. But it was nice seeing, people that I haven't seen in a long time because I live in Toronto. I don't get to see, all these guys that I grew up with a whole lot. Some of us we keep in touch and, others not. So we're sitting there chatting, and there's one guy who he piped up and he said, hey, man, do you know that he was talking to my buddy, and he goes, do you know that your place that you grew up in, your house is haunted? And I was like, what? And he was like the guy whose house was. He's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, yeah, man. He's like, that place is haunted. He's like, there was a coach living there. And he's like, he had to leave. All the coaches, they all had to leave. That place is haunted, man. And I was like, what? And then my buddy's like, I don't think so, man. But in my head, I was like, oh, I think it is haunted. And I only thought that because I had never seen a ghost or anything like that my whole life. But there was one time I stayed over at his house, and I don't know, I was maybe 11, 12 years old, and I pissed myself. I pissed the bed, and I'm like, oh, that's haunted. I would have never pissed myself, right? So when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that house is haunted. That's why I pissed myself, right? And I'm talking, this wasn't a wet dream like I came, and you're probably thinking 11, 12, I got my puberties or whatever, and I cummed all over the bed. No, it wasn't cum. It was piss, man. And that sucks when you piss the bed at your friend's house, because what do you don't want to admit it, right? You don't want them to think you pissed the bed, and it wasn't a regular thing. It happened only one time. That's all I'm saying. The house is haunted. Who even knows if it was piss? Maybe I didn't even piss myself, and I just thought I did. So I went to the washroom, and I think I maybe tried to wring out my boxers. I can't quite remember, but I went back, and when you piss the bed at your friend's place, you just sleep in it all night. And you don't say a word about it the next morning. And, oh, wow, I was sweating a lot last night. So, yeah, I think, haunted houses, that's the telltale sign, is if you piss the bed in the haunted house, right? Okay, we've been doing this, this episode's been going for about 34 minutes, so we're going to do Everybody Knows What Time It Is. What time is it? Time for our favorite segment. Used to be the old podcast name. We're going to be doing segments on this every Tuesday. And how do we do it? We go beat up 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 beat up 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 beat up 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 tugging it and tugging it and tugging it. We're tugging it and tugging it and tugging it. We're tugging it and tugging it and tugging it. Tugging It Tuesdays. Okay. The Tugging It Tuesday segment, we're going to be talking about some form of tugging, some form of dudes masturbating, I guess. That's all we can really... But for good reason, I had to change the name of the podcast. Maybe it was because I'm in my 30s now, as opposed to the last time I had the podcast, I was in my late 20s. I've grown up a little, and people are like, yeah, you probably should have been grown up in your late 20s. Anyways, we're doing the Tugging It Tuesday segment right now. I don't know why they call it a rub and tug. You guys know what I'm talking about? You go and you get the massage, right? And then they have the happy ending, the rub and tug. I don't know why they call it the rub and tug. I think it's a flawed business model. I think it should be called the tug and then the rub, right? A tug and rub. Right? Because who wants to go and get a massage and the whole time you're sitting there, you got a boner, and you can't fucking lay down properly on the bed, and you're wondering the whole time, when the hell is this chick gonna jack me off, right? You gotta do the tug and then the rub, right? You go in there, she tugs you off at the start, and you're all relaxed, and then it's like you can really get into them muscles. You can really massage them muscles up once you've had the tug first, right? So I think they should tug it first and then rub it, right? That's just my 2 cents on that whole thing. So thank you guys for tuning in to the I almost said Tugging It Tuesday podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Canadian Famous podcast first episode. I'm hoping to have this out to you guys tonight, which is Tuesday, March 26th, but it might be out tomorrow, Wednesday, which is March 27th, if I can't get the editing done. Going forward, all the episodes will be coming out on Tuesday. Why? Because we're doing the Tugging It Tuesday segment. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. We will see you next week on Tuesday.